All right, my friend, you and I got a lot in common. Not only the utilizing creativity to change our self-worth, but also the mission that we're on. So I know we touched base a little bit before we got started, but I think to set the stage, you should definitely talk a little bit about your background for me.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. Just for allowing me to share my story on your platform. Because for me, my story started out as being someone who didn't really know what he wanted out of life. I was just going through the motions. I thought that I needed to um succumb to the society's norms of the 8 to 5, the you need to be, constantly working at a certain place, not fulfilling your passion. And I thought that was it. Like that was like the end all be all for my life. I didn't see any other way out. So a lot of my story is based on not really realizing my self-worth until I heard a radio interview, which is a it was an interview about like going to an audio engineering school, and they had a studio in that school. And I was like, wow, let me take this as something like maybe God is telling me like maybe pursue music. Like I didn't know it was just gonna happen out of just being curious about writing from middle school and being so enthusiastic with learning how to like express myself through words. It just seemed like it was this full circle, like God was just putting me in spaces where like he was telling me, yeah, music is your thing, like get into it, like with your poetry, with your writing, like you're expressing yourself. And the part of expressing myself really felt so cathartic to me that I'm just like, let's experiment with poems, let's experiment with raps, and it just took form from there.
That's the coolest thing about a lot of these journeys. When we go on these journeys in self-discovery, is not only the places that we end up, but a lot of the things that happen along the course of getting to where we're intended to be as we discover our voice. And I know from personal experience that idea of discovering your voice and how to utilize it, even though you've got the image in your mind of where you want to go, the message you want to pursue, and all those things, it's challenging to actually craft that voice in a way that not only fulfills your message, but it's something you're comfortable doing.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree 100%.
So talk to me a little bit about that. Tell me about, that passion and how it started to craft that voice for you.
For me, um I I felt like I found my voice when I was able to just from journal writing from middle school, being able to just say like, okay, this is how my day went, and not really filter myself for expressing myself, because soon after I didn't know that I was gonna go through an identity crisis for me when I started to put out my first couple of singles and started to really experiment with rap. I really didn't really know who I wanted to be as a person, because I was seeing the people who were doing it have a certain aesthetic. They were more like gangster rappers who I was listening to. So I thought that that was it for me. And then I started to work on my skill set, but I didn't really realize that my passion really came from all of those dark moments where I was alone in my room figuring out who I wanted to be in life. And I was at a point in my life where I didn't really know um the type of music that would really fulfill me without attempting to be like a people pleaser, in a sense of wanting to be someone who is publicized for doing something that is not really him. And I thought that was something that was acceptable because that was acceptable back then. And I really had to sit with myself um in a dark room and really realize, wait a minute, I'm not being my authentic self. Like I'm not really, pursuing you know, the passion that I had, you know what I mean? Despite being my authentic self. Like that was my passion, was being able to just say, hey, I'm not doing okay. Hey, like I'm struggling with something and I just want to express myself. I really found it and listening to music that really set me free when I was going through my dark moments. And writing has always been an escape for me when I couldn't find any words to say verbally, to someone. I was able to write it in a song. And a lot of my music is about empowering other people um to realize their self-worth.
And take me back a little bit about exactly where that self-worth came into question. Where was it kind of like a case of maybe because I lacked that identity or I lacked that voice growing up, I never built the vocabulary to express at least internally where that self-worth comes from. So I know I've experienced a lot of that growing up. But then there's also that puzzle piece that we worked in there where somebody takes it away from you. They start throwing labels at you, they start throwing words at you. And because you're so desperate for acceptance and that people pleasing mentality comes out, you take on those labels. You accept what they tell you that your worth is, and you lose sight of it.
Yeah, I resonated with that 100% because that just took me back to, when I first started, when I first put out my first EP. That was 2015. And I was rookie on the block, new kid on the block in the rap game. So I was still getting my feet wet, figuring out exactly who I was, right? I'm just, just experimenting, not really know what sound I'm going for, don't know what my messaging as yet. Like I'm not a branded artist yet. So I just came out with experimentation. So when it came with the labels, it was when I started to really fully put out let's say, like, for example, I would put out like diss tracks and I would put out very aggressive tracks that were the opposite of what people saw me as. They saw me as I would just classify or label myself as like this vulnerable person, sensitive even, empathetic person, individual. And that's not what they saw me as. So when I did anything that was slightly different than what they saw, perceived, then they thought I was being fake. And a lot of people don't know I wore those labels for so many years, and it really did cripple my music career, where I wanted to give up on my music career and on my life because I allowed what someone else's narrative to become my own. And I was not, I was not proud that I gave power to people, that I shouldn't have given the power to, honestly. And I realized that um after I started to do inner work, I really realized that, wait a minute, I get to write the story. I get to define who I am and who I was becoming, when it comes to being a music artist with a core message of resiliency and hope and healing. And as far as also the labels too, I will say that when it comes to labels, because I allowed it to be who I am, I walked around with a lot of shame. There were a lot of things that were said to me, like, you're never gonna amount to nothing as a rapper, you're trash, like, this rapper is better than you, like, give it up. And, Diddy would throw my CD out the window if he could. And it was like all those different things all combined, it really took a number on my mental health because I started to think that, okay, maybe I'm not cut out for this. Maybe I am not enough for this. Maybe I should just pack it up and give it up because it seems like that's the label that people were giving me, and that was the label that I honestly believed in before I started to rewrite my own label.
As I listen to you, I think about the hero's journey, in that we all reach a place like that because we all grow up one way or another, kind of missing out on that vocabulary that authentically expresses who we are. So we got to go through those defeats, in order to find the path, in order to work through what 90% of the hero journey is: the self discovery mode, the strengthening the muscles, the finding a new approach to the same original obstacle that made us stop in our tracks in the very beginning of the story. And that's where labels get so difficult, and they get so dangerous, because if you're not aware of the effect these labels are having on you, then you're ending up finding yourself going deeper and deeper into that dark hole, and it becomes more challenging to pull yourself out of it. So talk to me a little bit about some of the tools that you use during that work, during that journey of self-discovery.
Yes. One of the tools that I used for my self-discovery was motivation. I didn't really do a lot of motivation until that point where I was feeling like I was in a moment where I was just like, I felt like I didn't really know who I was, and I was really lacking belief in myself. I took motivation seriously. I started to listen to a lot of motivational speakers, Eric Thomas, David Goggins, a lot of those motivational speakers really helped me when I was not wanting to be here, when I wanted to just like end it all. And I really started to tap into my communities. I tapped into um a men's community. I tapped into an accountability groups that was able to share some of these deep thoughts and deep emotions and my suicidal thoughts and things like that. And then just to have people hold space for me, because that was really the key for me, is not to realize is to realize that I am able to express myself um without having to necessarily hold myself back. Because the thing about community is like it was easy for me to stay within my own box, so to speak, which I did in the pandemic, which is the reason why I was very suicidal, because I really secluded myself from everyone, including family. And I also realized that by me tapping into community, tapping into motivation, actually taking therapy, when I was thinking like, well, therapy is not for me. I honestly I was receptive to like all the advices, and I started to um apply all the things I've learned to strengthen me. I do affirmations every single morning. I meditate. I meditated at the time. I still do all those things. I read books self-care, and it really, all those things helped me really build a strong foundation to where I am today. Like without that work, man, I really don't think I would be here, because there's so much that is thrown at me on a daily basis, especially as an artist, um, when having to face different criticism and things like that. It really can get me in a downward spiral really quick. So a lot of those things help me stay balanced, and to helps me to realize that like um that my that my foundation, as long as I keep doing it, it's gonna work itself out.
I really think in a roundabout way, it all channels back to developing and holding on to that feeling of hope.
Yes.
That feeling of hope that we're all born with. But as we go through life and we go through our challenges, get knocked down, it starts to muffle itself. We stop listening to it as directly. So having that awareness of yourself and finding tools to be able to refoster and retrain yourself to listen to that voice of hope is so important, regardless of where you're at within your journey. whether you're going through the storms of life or you're standing in the sunshine of life. Always being able to ground yourself and come center and realize that regardless of where which path I'm on right now, hope is still walking there in my heart. And then there was something else that you touched on that I spent a lot of time doing myself is the isolation part. And I think it's something that's very important to explore because I think isolation itself has a bit of a negative stigma around it. A lot of us think that because we're alone, we're failing or we're just, it's hopeless. Nobody wants to be around us and blah, blah, blah. But the truth of the matter is when you're in that type of space where you're alone, that's where you're able to do this work. And I think if we shift the vocabulary from all those negative aspects and stigmas to more of a place where we consider the isolation being a time to rebuild, a time to reconstruct, get right, get ourselves centered and develop all these tools that bring hope back into our heart. I think, goes a long way to helping somebody step past those dreadful feelings or the triggers of extreme depression or whatever that else that may come with the isolation.
Yeah, I honestly I agree with you 100%. That it's like a two-edged sword almost because um I preface it like this. When I was isolated, I was I was very depressed. Like I was feeling like I wasn't enough. So I ended up wearing a mask. A lot of times I would walk around pitch dark, shades on and everything. This going through life with this the blindness on, like nobody could see me and things like that. So people, I was always hiding, always hiding. And like it really took a lot out of me to be like, what am I hiding for? Like I need to just be who I am. Like you know what I mean? Allow people to see me who I am, flaws and all. And during the pandemic was one of my it was such a tumultuous time for me, as well as other people. As far as myself, I internalized a lot of the things, so I ended up reverting back to a lot of the things that people were saying to me, and that's what allowed me to spiral. I was also going through mental abuse with a mentor of mine that I was working with on my career for about 4 years, and we had a falling out during the pandemic. And after the midst of the mental abuse, um I decided to depart from, that professional relationship because my mental health was critical at the time, and I was suicidal after the fact that we had a falling out because of the mental abuse situation that we encountered. So, I think isolation helped me process a lot of the things. I mean, everything because I was able to channel it through my music. And I also had people who were in position that I felt like God put in position in my life to help me navigate that space too. Because if it wasn't for this one person in particular who showed me the Your Reality video via Zoom and really dissected it with me of like this is what she's doing, like you need to speak up and speak out because she saw worth in me. She saw potential in my and what I was doing with my music. And she knew like my music was important and she wanted me to be here. So like it just comes back full circle for me that a lot of my like the outreaches that I've did to just be able to just share a lot of the stuff that I didn't want to share really helped me become a better person to not allow like my demons to like overtake me and allow me to just fully like step into my power because when I was isolated I loved it because I was able to figure out who I was and who I was becoming, but then it was times where I was too isolated where I felt like it was like it was hindering me because it allowed me to think like I was always alone, like no one was there for me, and I started to become, to be honest, like a victim. I had this victim's mentality, which is the reason why I named my book From Victim to Victor, transforming trauma into triumph, because of the fact that I felt like I was a victim of mental abuse. So I think really all of this has come full circle for me.
And I think it's interesting the fact that as we talk through this subject, when I look at not only my past, but I hear in yours as well, and I see it with a lot of the people that I work with, there's a common thread. All that depression, all that anxiety, all that lack of ability to rely on ourselves leads us to fill our space with people that prey on those things and they utilize them for their very own. So that's where I know for me, within the isolation, that's where the shift came. And when I brought that concept out here into the wilderness, that's where I began to actually see and connect with as well as understand the natural flow of life. When we're caught up in all those negative things, we fight so hard against life because it's pushing us along and we feel desperate for the connection. We feel desperate for the control. But when you come out and you sit down and you just let yourself watch and observe, you understand that all these points and all these moments that you face, the control is still there. You know, that you're the one that's got the power to make the decision. If somebody that had an unhealthy impact on your life came into it, it was your decision whether you would, admit to it or not, to allow that person in. And as you come out of this spell of the season of isolation, you become aware of that conscious decision. You become more of an agency for yourself and gain more autonomy to invoke those powerful decisions. And I feel like through the course of life, it's something that we're supposed to really learn and understand is that life is about the experience, but it also with that experience comes the responsibility of decision, decision for yourself and making sure that, it's you that's guiding the way. You're not swimming up against the river more than you have to. And, I know that through my journey, those are important points that stuck with me to be able to make the transition and the shift into the space that I'm in now. And I'm sure that, as we talk through it, you can reflect on that and kind of feel that same identity and that ability to identify with that. So I want to talk a little bit about how that momentum, how that shift began to change the direction and kind of lead you more toward the refined purpose of your journey.
The really the big shift for me was when I was doing a lot of uh I was heavily involved in my church at the time. This was like, feels like, several years ago, like 7 years or so ago. And I was helping out, I believe, at the church at the time, and um there was a group visiting from Canada, and I ended up seeing conversating with them and things like that. And one of the guys, he must have been in this, not even a teen, probably like a preteen. We ended up chatting it up and things like that. And I did mention, that I was an artist, and I do music and things like that, spoken word and stuff like that. They seemed interested, and so after that, we just had a conversation. I just, shared my socials and stuff like that. So I didn't make anything big out of it. I was just like conversating. I didn't think it was like a big deal. So I went back home, that same night that I met this group from Canada. So the guy's name was Ryan, who I ended up giving my Facebook to. So when I got home, I went in my room and I saw I felt like God was telling me, you need to go on your Facebook Messenger like now, like there's something important you need to see. So I'm like, okay, so I ended up going to, checking my messenger to see what was going on because I'm like, and then all of a sudden, like Ryan hits me up and, I'm like, okay, because I'm like, he doesn't know me like that. So I'm just like, okay, like I didn't think he was gonna hit me up. So he ended up saying like my YouTube saved his life. And I'm like, how the heck, in my mind, because this time, all these years of me thinking I'm not enough, that's still in my head while he was saying that, while he wrote that. So I'm like, how's that even possible? I didn't know what he was going through. I didn't even know what I put out there that would entice someone or to heal or, to not resort to suicide. Like I didn't think I was capable of that, honestly. And that really was a pivotal moment for me to not give up on myself and not to give up on my dreams because like I didn't know like the power of my words. I really didn't until that day that he told me that you sent me that message. So like that really helped me define my purpose of like, wait a minute, like you have something to contribute that's bigger than you. And then I started to say to myself, like, wait a minute, yeah, it is bigger than me. So I ended up making it my mission to use my music, whether it's spoken word, to my book, anything that I'm able to do to continue to remind people of their self-worth, because that's so important to me, to get that message out there. And I'm just so grateful that I was able to be the catalyst for change that he needed, that he needed in his life in a sense so that he could move on with whatever hardships and things that he was going through at that moment. So that really changed my life forever. And I still remember that moment.
That's a powerful moment. I've experienced a lot of those myself. So I want to do this though. I want to transition here as we come toward the end of our time, and I want you to talk directly to that person that is sitting in isolation right now, still kind of under the cloud of the stigma and the negativity around the perception of it, and they're battling their way, trying to push their way out of that storm. Give them a little bit of encouragement, inspiration.
You absolutely. My inspiration is to tell like, hey, like I know like you're struggling. I know that you're hurting right now, but this too shall pass. Everything that is, that you're going through right now is just, for the moment. It won't be your forever. And you have the power to really pen a new narrative for yourself and rewrite the story because as long as you're breathing, there's always hope. There's always someone to speak to. There's someone on the other side of whatever you've been through, and there's someone that could help you get off the ledge. So I encourage you to never give up on yourself, never lose hope. Always remind yourself that you are enough to be here because you are, and never allow anyone to dictate your purpose of yours or your self-worth because you're special and you're here for a reason, and never ever allow people to discredit the purpose that you're meant to leave and the legacy you're meant to leave on this earth because you're important and you're a staple in this world and you're very much needed.
I think that was well said. So before
Thank
I
you.
let you go, you got to take the time to let people know what you got going on, what you got coming up, how to get in touch with you, all that good stuff.
Yes. I have a book out. It's called From Victim to Victor: Transforming Trauma into Triumph. This is book is available on my website at Rich Vision. So RICHVYSION.com. So RICHVY like yellow SION.com. I also have merch if you're interested in that as well. If you can find my music also on the same website as well. I am all around multifaceted author, recording artist, spoken word artist as well. I dabble in all of those. And my Instagram is also my same name, which is Rich Vision. So RICHVYSION. So please stay connected. I love what I my goal is also to drop a single a month. So my next single is dropping this month. My single I Will Not Commit Suicide is out right now. Please, listen to it and share it. I would really appreciate it. And I'm working on some new materials to get out as well. Working on a new EP, which I'm excited about because this is gonna be a really dark record, but also empowering as well. So there's a lot of good stuff coming up. So I'm excited to be able to share that with you.
Awesome. Rich, I don't believe in goodbyes. So until we meet again, whether
Thank
it's
you.
this time around or in our next life, I hope you have a good, safe journey.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate that. Definitely, I would love to come back again. It was a pleasure to speak to you.